Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to some more Warpforge. And I've been definitely doing some streaming. I will say, just uploading the VODs to YouTube has been a bit lazy of me, I will admit. But to be honest, I didn't have a ton of other videos that I wanted to do. You know, the season was over, I grinded quite a bit, and just kind of needed a little bit of a break. But we're back in, as you can see from our starting screen here, I kind of wanted to do a video talking about the new rank system. And instead of first impressions, you know, in like week 1 versus week 4, we have fully had a whole month of the new rank system. And I kind of just wanted to offer my thoughts and then go over the 4 builds that I did have, where I sort of ended up. Because as some people may have noticed from the balance patch, it was a pretty light sprinkling of changes, to say the least. And so I don't really expect the meta to shift that much. And so this video kind of does 2 things. Obviously, members will see it first too, just to, you know, to pump that up a little bit more, and then get some exclusive content to you guys pretty soon. Yeah, just really wanted to talk about what's changed, what's been good, give a little bit of, you know, more attention to what decks I felt like were good and why. And thankfully, at the end of the season, we finished 28th, which I think is one of the highest that I've finished, or pretty close to. Now I kind of have a soft goal, if I can, of maybe top 20 and then on from there. But it really depends on the season. I really have to like the decks. I really have to like the meta, because you got to grind it out. You really do. And I guess maybe this is a good place to start. One of the best changes, though, I have to say, is that when you achieve your highest score in that faction, if you go on a terrible loss streak, if you have an off day, if the meta is just not working out for you that day or whatever, you still maintain that highest score. And honestly, that really helped my motivation this season, because when you go on just a massive loss streak, or just get, you know, so you get some brick draws where you really can't play the deck, you know, it feels less bad when you're like, oh, I was at 3100 earlier today, I went back down to 3050. Okay, you know, at the very least, I have a 3100 average with that faction. So, you know, I guess that's a good way to kick off the video. As always, thank you for supporting the channel. We are above 700 subscribers. We're well on our way to 1,000. That is the goal for the channel by the end of this year. So if you like the content, if you've been enjoying the streams, and I feel like that's just been such a fun thing for me to do more of lately, these last 2 months, feel free to join. Trying to get a stream schedule together. I started 2 new jobs, and that's just been a little crazy for me. I talked about that on stream with folks. Also, I got to shout out Frank Knight here, beating us out at 26. Another really great person who stops by the streams as well. So yeah, feel free to check out the content, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's all free. And if you want to be a member, that's awesome too. But I will say, there's not like a lot happening in Warpforge. I really feel like if you want to be a member, probably the best time to sign on is when we get more content, right? So new Necron cards, where we're talking about that, evaluating that. Whenever we get the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum, I am so excited for that, and I'm definitely going to be doing a ton of content then. So, you know, might be a better investment once we've got a little bit more to talk about. But really today, just wanted to give my you know, my take on ranked. I think that this season was one of the best seasons that we've had, in the sense of the competitive spirit, the diversity of decks that I saw. And, you know, to caveat this a little bit, yes, we had to deal with 2 very toxic strategies, which was, to no one's surprise, Scarabs. And we talked about that even in our first, our like week 1 or week 2 impressions of ranked were. And I think at that point, Gene Stealers had just gotten out on the scene. But Gene Stealers and Scarabs really warped the meta for last month. They've both been tamped down in this balance patch. I do think that specifically Gene Stealers is a lot more soft to things like Chaos, you know, Abaddon aggro, Swarmlord aggro, and we'll get into the decks very soon. And so I really think that Gene Stealers will kind of continue to be competitive, but definitely not top tier. Scarabs, I still think they're decent. The Disruption Blades kind of reversion, which was probably the best thing for them to do, does make it so they're not able to present lethal on turn 4 or 5. They're going to have to work for it. They're going to have to like build, send in their board, rebuild their board. That makes the deck a lot more fragile. It makes the Abaddon matchup like that much harder, which was already really good into it. So I think we'll just probably see less of those decks because people are kind of tired or sick of it as well. But decks, we're going to be talking about decks that basically receive no changes, and will be, I think, continue to be excellent. But my kind of take as a whole is that I really enjoyed playing in this season. I definitely, had my own thoughts and feelings on having to play against certain meta decks. But honestly, streaming and just grinding it out, and I kind of got into this mentality of like, play your game, right? Don't make any mistakes. Play the best game you can. If they combo off, they combo off. But like, as long as I am playing my game to the best of my ability, then that's all I can do. And that's kind of what you have to do in metas where combos are really, really strong, is that like, if it comes together for them, there's nothing you can do. So like, try not to get yourself down, right? Because it is going to suck at times, but really the most important thing is like, you're not making any mistakes. You are playing to the best of your ability. That's all you can control and sort of focus on. And so I think that really helped me stay motivated. And then of course, at the last second, they tacked on, we're going to give this season an extra day. And then I remember talking to Slither, and it was like, oh God, we have to maintain our spots for more. And Slither was maintaining top 10, which is a lot harder than just top 50, which has been my goal for this season. But I knew I wanted to be sort of in the middle of the pack, anywhere between 25 and 30, to guarantee my top 50 slot. Because as you can see, Enz and us have literally the same point value, right? We're only a few points off, and that's where the grind can really get kind of crazy, where you're only gaining 9 points in particular wins, losing 40. But again, because of the thing where they maintain your highest score, I really didn't enjoy playing Gene Stealers. Got them to like 3,100 or something. And then I lost with them doing a little bit of testing. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep the score at 3,100. It's high enough. Let me focus on the other factions that I enjoy. So also, if like something gets stale for you, but it's still one of your higher scores for like the global leaderboard, you can kind of just pivot off it and be like, you know what? I hit that highest score at the beginning of the season. Now the deck's not so good, or now I'm not enjoying it as much. Let me pivot to the other decks that I like. And I think those are some of the benefits. Now, I'd be wrong if I didn't talk about the new player experience. I think global leaderboard for new players is like kind of unreachable, because you're really only realistically able to grind 1 to 2 factions within the first month of playing. And that's putting a lot of time and effort into it. 4 is going to be tough. But hopefully there's more and more attention to the new player experience. I think we're going to be seeing official launch within the next month or so. Here's hoping that kind of rewards players too who have stuck around, and just makes the ability to, like, if your goal is to be in the global leaderboard as a newer player, that it won't be so hard to achieve, because I think that is kind of the biggest drawback of the system. But that's kind of just my general thoughts on it. I really think that the new rank system is what we were looking for. It brought in a lot of new life initially. Everyone was saying that the play experience was better. More people were playing the game, period. And honestly, in the last couple of weeks, I played against some top tier players, which I don't feel like I get to see that much, and had a blast doing that. And they felt like really impactful games. It just generally the ranked experience after playing season after season for nearly a year since early access. It's I think we're getting towards a better place. But without further ado, why don't I talk about and show off the 4 decks that got me to 28 here, just so that people can take a look. And as I said, these decks really don't need to change much. The meta hasn't shifted much. And I think I'll start with actually my least favorite, and I won't spend too much time on it. And that is the classic Ascension Approaches Gene Stealer combo, Rampant Infestation, as you can see, the new patch is live. It now costs 7 instead of 6. Whenever I played Swarmlord or Abaddon, it was not hard to have a lethal setup into my opponent by turn 6. And so the fact that it's now 7, and it, even if you're on the draw and you're trying to set things up with your 0 energy card, it can this deck combo off and just beat you? Absolutely, it can, and there's not a ton that you can do. But it's very beatable if you are playing aggro, and if you kind of know what to look for. And so most of this combo is very soft to 3 damage spells. It's pretty soft to, you'll hear me say Abaddon a lot. He's just really, really, really well positioned into go wide strategies and combo strategies like this. And so, the deck is very soft to anything that can do a decent bit of AoE damage or can just absolutely pound your opponent. And that's, I'll also talk about, some of the decks I'm considering. One of them I'm considering is Gruk Aggro Control, because I think it's just well suited into many decks. And into this deck, it can certainly punish, because also now you might be able to Will of Gork the turn after your opponent has gone off, which is a huge, huge punish. And I feel like it's going to push this deck to not fully drop its whole hand out, and maybe play a little bit more value tempo style, with like Rampant Infestation being kind of like, okay, I can tutor this out if I want to. Maybe I'll be wrong about that. Maybe it'll still be the standard combo. But I did toy with different Gene Stealer builds towards the end of the season, and I think one of the strengths of theirs is that you have a lot of different options between this Warlord and the Epic Warlord with Magus. And you can kind of adjust to different things, and I don't think you always have to just like put your hand on the table, so to speak. So this deck kind of quickly fell out of favor for me because I was doing the same thing every game. It didn't really feel terribly competitive, especially when I got the combos off. And everyone can feel how they feel about different decks. I just kind of fell off the wagon with this deck, I guess, if you will. But this was the construction that I was running. I really like just having the 1 Rampant Infestation and not the Familiar, sorry, and the Perfect Ambush, and being able to kind of guarantee that. Sometimes that was excellent. And then the deck sort of plays itself. Not much to say here. Sorry, the weather keeps changing in New York, so I'm like getting sniffly. Okay, so I would say my third favorite build was just good old the new Keltalk is the best Keltalk. And after a bit of coaching and like suggestions from BJ, and I want to say a couple other players too, I feel like I got the build to a place and I really liked it, which was basically being able to make sure that you're tossing out stuff from your hand, getting those Spirit Stones when you needed them, so that you could just always guarantee going off with Reclaim the Stars perfectly. And the deck is great. I mean, it's soft to aggro a bit. It does combo off on 7 energy, but because you're Eldar, you just have access to things like Shroudrunner, like Windrider, and plenty of other things. I mean, Nadu is always really impactful whenever you play him. So if you haven't played this style of the deck, this feels like fair combo to me. Maybe other people would say different. Because you don't just win the game on the spot when you Reclaim the Stars, and you can't always guarantee that you're going to do it. Because if you have to answer threats and go pound for pound with your opponent, you're going to have to spend some Spirit Stones to do that, where it's like, okay, I got to drop my Spirit Seer and use my 2 Spirit Stones. I will say, having the defense stratagem for Eldar that allows you to get 2 stones for 1 energy is huge for this deck. I think it probably increases the win rate anywhere from 5 to 10%. It kind of feels similar to Digestion Pool for Tyranids in that way. You just kind of need that card to make the deck function optimally. I've been really happy with this construction. You can toss out threats. You can adjust to threats. Then I will say an absolute MVP, if you have not tried teching this card, is Evasive Maneuver. Now, back in the day, when I was playing Uriel all the time, because I was just a classic brainless aggro player, which is my favorite thing to do, was get destroyed by this card, Evasive Maneuver, because people would actually tech it so that you can't play Death from Above on my face. You can't play, you can't even target me with Uriel's ability, right? You're going to target a troop next to me. This was specifically in this matchup, so it doesn't apply to everything, but evasive maneuver can actually be really nasty in the mirror. And I actually won quite a few mirrors with evasive maneuver because I was able to not have to attack, keep permanent camouflage on my warlord, right? Which means that they can't Wailing Doom me and they can't Banshee's Mask me. And so that obviously rally effects still go through camo, so you still get hit by things like Crimson Hunter. But when you're trying to close out the game in the mirror, the fact that you can Wailing Doom your opponent if they don't play that card and you can't get hit by that, he's just going to swing the matchup. And I actually think evasive maneuver applies in a couple other matchups, not too many, because there's much more AoE damage in the game, and camo doesn't help you with that. This card is sweet. Gaining the 5 life is very relevant, especially when you're getting beaten down. Also, I just find that chaos could be sometimes hard, and being able to take warp storm and even toss this out earlier and try and save yourself a little bit of health could be great. So yeah, that's kind of like one little tech card. I think most people know about this card. I wouldn't say that this is like anything new. But if you haven't tried it, I honestly think it's pretty great. And then everything else is pretty proactive or reactive in a helpful way. And I found that one Infinity Circuit was fine. And that I also found that having one Wraithblade was fine as well. So that we could have some of these lower cost cards to just like toss out of our hands so that we get the full value out of Reclaim the Stars. I will say, like, by the end of it, I got a little bit tired of the play style. It's sort of dynamic depending on what your opponent's threats are. I still think it's good. I still think it's solidly tier 2. I think Swarm Lord, if I had to guess, with it boasting a 61% win rate, I think, in Legendary at the end of the season, not surprised at all. I think he is very close, if not the new tier 1. I don't think that Eldar match up terribly well into them. They can't really beat Hardened Biology draws. Like, that is just so difficult to deal with. Is it winnable? Totally. I think that Keltok specifically just struggles because he's not an aggressive warlord. I think Galen and Zephyrblade have actually a solid matchup into Swarmlord. I would say that maybe Zephyrblade is a little bit better suited, even more so. Anvir just suffers a little bit more because he's a little less proactive and can't really go pound for pound in the aggression department. But I still think that the deck is very serviceable. You still got to know what you're doing. You still got to know how to keep the tempo up and then be able to close out the game. But the deck is just really solid, and I think it still does well into different strategies because of Eldritch Storm that are more combo oriented. So it's got a good matchup into both the Gene Stealer combo and Scarabs. So that helps a bit. So that is Anvir, and then I will talk about the two decks that I said this when I was talking to the folks from Masterclass, that I feel like really carried the deck, carried my season, and that is my old deck. I actually worked off of a build that Amon, who's also a great player, called King of the Swarm, had sent, and then I had sort of augmented a little bit. So this build of Swarmlord, it's hard for me to say, like, is this the best build? For me, it was. I felt like just being incredibly proactive and always having a 3-drop was just really, really important in a meta where you can't really do anything about Scarabs and you can't really do anything about Infestation comboing off other than applying pressure, right? And so what this deck boasts is things like Barb Gaunt, which honestly has been an MVP in this meta last season, and I still think the card, like, the unit's kind of slept on. If you have not tried this, because the +1 health buff from last patch, this thing just does work, and being able to pair it very nicely with Predator Instincts, which at times felt very ineffective, it's really nice with Barb Gaunt. And as you'll see, I completely cut Venom Crawler because right now you just don't really need it. And I actually think that Barb Gaunt does much more into certain matchups than Venom Crawler ever could. So you're not going to see a ton of differences here. I did cut a Neuraloid, and that's mainly because with Neurogaunt and with Tyranid Warrior, you've got plenty of Synapse, and at times I had these really awkward draws where I was like 2 Neuraloids and a Neurogaunt, and then my board's kind of not really doing anything. And so I think switching, having Barbgaunt, Gargoyle, Gene Stealer, and Tyrannid Warrior, these were all things that can apply pressure on turn 3. Although Barbgaunt and Gargoyle you obviously want to play later, you don't have to, right? There's sort of that modality there. Another card to talk about, Von Ryan's Leaper. I had liked playing Lictor. I kind of came to like guaranteeing the 3 drops over the 4 drops a bit more, but Von Ryan kind of doubles as an 8 drop, right? Because you can get another body out of it, and honestly, it was really impactful a lot of the time. Still love the 2 Carnifex. The unit's just an absolute house. Ravenous Hunter, it got nerfed. It's still good. No surprise there. 1 Tyrant Guard has felt good. I really just don't love multiples of this card. Sometimes you need this to protect a threat that has lived through combat the previous turn. So I still think 1, and sometimes when you give this Hardened Biology, it's never going to die. So that's pretty great too. Rapacious Hunger, obviously an all-star in go wide formats, so that's been really great too. Yeah, and I think there's some flex here, right? You could play Lictors, you could play Biovore in the 3-drop slot. There's actually quite a bit you can flex in here. But yeah, this build just felt great. Shout out to Amon again for suggesting this kind of construction. I definitely augmented a little bit of it. But if I could shout out a card, like my card of the season for this deck, Barbgaunt. This thing is so annoying and so good and so flexible. Put it in your deck. I really think if you haven't been playing that with Swarmlord, you're kind of missing out. So no surprise that this boasted a 61% win rate. I just feel like it's always been the most consistent Warlord for this faction. It remains consistent. It did get nerfed in terms of Ravenous Hunter, but it just doesn't seem to matter. The deck can pick up steam really, really well, be aggressive. It can pivot when it needs to. Even units like Slither was saying, I think it was like I was playing in the draft event and someone played a Hive Crone. I was like, dang, I don't have any Hive Crones in my deck. What do I do about this card? And Slither just in the stream chat was just like, yeah, I think that's what most people think when there's a Hive Crone played, which is that, God, this is such a problematic unit. And it is. Actually efficient. It can hit their face. It can hit their units. It's then going to hit them, and you can't really kill it unless you've got hard removal. So, just the deck, it does such a good job of presenting threats. And Hardened Biology sometimes just snowballs you to the point where no one can do anything. And so it also has that kind of like high roll quality to it. But if I had to say the best position deck for this meta in this season, keep clicking on the wrong version of the deck. So, but a little bit of a bonus builds there, is Chaos and just the classic buggy aggro. Shout out to the OG Chaos Master here. This deck was just doing everything you wanted it to. The satisfaction that you got, Legacy of Vengeancing, so your Warlord hits them for 11, and on 4 energy when your opponent is setting up lethal on you, you get to hit them for 11, and then just Traitors hate their entire board. It was, as you can tell, it was one of the most satisfying things that I got to deal with, when having to deal with Scarabs. It just was like, get punished, see you later, on to the next game. So yeah, just the double Legacy of Vengeance and Traitors hate. Obviously, you've also got 2 Spawn them. I mean, the deck is just perfectly set up. The one, I think, notable change I did was I shaved a Murderous Desires. I just got caught multiple times, multiple games with this card, 2 of in my hand, doing nothing. It's an incredibly impactful card. It does require a bit of setup, and I think that I have not looked back since playing 1, and it's felt good to me. I think Legacy of Vengeance is kind of doing a similar impression, but it's just a little bit more consistent. And so just having 2 Legacy of Vengeance, 1 Murderous Desires felt good to me. I think saw in some thread that people are playing Hellbrute for the mirror and for other certain matchups, and 1 Hellbrute's actually felt great. And sometimes you get into those board states where you just need to land some big threat that they can't deal with, and Hellbrute's always been there. But also the deck having like Noise Marine, sort of combo starts, just the ability to deal with any board with things like Spawn them, just felt great. Chosen's always pulling its weight. Possessed Champion, Warp Talon. You know, there's not much to say here. And then of course you've got Dracnian to just, you know, smack them in the face when you need to, and burn from Helldrake Strike. So those are the 4 decks, and honestly, I think my 2 winningest decks, and I think I got to. Can I see it? See if I know how to do this. Sorry for my terrible clicking. Okay, it doesn't show it here, but if I go to leaderboard for last season, this is on 28, right? It's my last season. Okay, we're there. What were our faction? Okay, so for Chaos, we were... Oh, this isn't showing last season. Shoot. Okay, never mind. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that last season I finished like I think it was like between 33 and 3400 for both Tyranids and Chaos. And then I finished, I think, like mid 31 with Eldar and like 31 with Genestealers. So Chaos, basically Abaddon and Swarmlord became my go-to warlords. Quick games, easy to grind. I would say Chaos in particular was just perfect for the meta in so many ways. And so those 4 decks were what I played. I really think that Anvir, Abaddon, and Swarmlord are all still going to be good. I would say, again, of the 2, Swarmlord and Abaddon are the best when it comes to those decks. I'm going to play Orcs this season. I definitely want to play some Gruck because it's been a little while, and I kind of miss it. So I think we'll probably run back Chaos, run back Tyranids, do some Orky business, and then it's probably going to be between Tau, and maybe either Necrons or Genestealers, depending on the Necron reinforcement, potentially, or Eldar. Still missing stuff for Sisters of Battle, but maybe I can get that worked out. I am going to be doing a video on Titus. I don't know if it's going to be any good, to be honest, but I definitely want to get a video up on the channel and talk about if it's possible to make aggro Ultramarines work. They probably work to a certain extent, but you know, didn't see a ton of love this patch, so I don't really know that they're going to be able to compete this season. So yeah, we went over just kind of general thoughts on rank system. I think we're going towards the right direction. It was a huge step up. Still things to tweak, certainly, especially for the new player experience. And then overall, just the decks that I played this season, how much I played, I think it was one of the better seasons I've been a part of. And I think, did I actually look at the card back? Yeah, this was pretty cool. Not gonna lie, the card back with the Genestealer was a nice touch. I've still got these early ones that they had done, but I've missed out on grinding the leaderboard quite a bit, and I think it'll be nice to. I feel like I have a bit more motivation for it now with the new system. So yeah, that's what I got for you today, folks. Thanks so much for sticking with the channel. I think we'll have a bit more content coming out. Definitely do some stuff on Titus. Do some more meta talk. You know, maybe experiment with the Galaron change. I don't think it's made him better, but maybe we'll try it. And maybe experiment with some other Genestealer builds, because I kind of wanted to get away from the infestation route anyway. So we've got some stuff coming up for you guys pretty soon. You might have noticed I've been trying out other card games too. Appreciate if you were giving that a bit of a follow, a bit of a watch. But as always, thanks for sticking with me, and I will catch you guys next time.